Mr. Kurt Volker, former United States Special Representative for Ukraine negotiations, is with us tonight in this very studio, believe it or not. Mr. Volker, hello.
Very nice to be with you. Thank you.
The pleasure is all mine. Well, let me hit it just straight. If Donald Trump wins, do you believe it is bad for Ukraine? Is that bad for Ukraine? Because some say, no, it's a disaster. Everything is going to fall down. All the house is going to crumble. And is that the case?
Yeah. Well, let me put it this way. What's bad for Ukraine is a lack of decisive support coming from the West. That is what we have already seen for the last 2.5 years. There's been a great deal of support, but it hasn't been enough. It hasn't been fast enough. It hasn't been strong enough. It's come with restrictions. And that has enabled Putin to continue this war for much longer than anyone would have wanted. So that's already bad for Ukraine. And I think what we need to do is get out of that pattern. Either way, whether it's Harris or Trump, that is what we have to do. We have to show much greater strength to Putin and convince him that there's no way that he will actually succeed in defeating Ukraine. That's the task at hand. Now, I don't know how either candidate will act. No one can tell you for sure what they will do.
Right.
You have to assume that Vice President Harris would largely be continuity with the Biden administration, which is, as I described, it's not enough. It's good, but it's not enough. With Trump, we simply don't know. He has said that he would want to end the war in a day. But of course, the only way the war ends is if Putin stops attacking. So that means you have to convince Putin to stop attacking. I've read a lot of things about what he might do. I would point to an op-ed by Mike Pompeo and David Urban in the Wall Street Journal from, I believe it was the end of August, early September, in which they outline a Trump plan for Ukraine, which is very strong. It's giving Putin kind of an ultimatum saying you either stop the war or we're giving Ukraine all the weaponry, everything that it needs until you stop. So we don't know what he will do. Either way, what we have to do is ramp this up in the short term to convince Putin that he has to stop.
Well, with all these talkings, do you believe this is going to happen with either Harris or Trump? Because I hear, like the West have a secret weapon, and this secret weapon is a talking bomb that we're about to throw at Putin's bunker to talk sense to him, which is impossible because he's a monster and you can't appease a monster, obviously.
No,
Well,
that's right.
either Trump or Harris. Do you think that this is going to mean something for Ukraine? That the decision is
Yeah,
going to
I
be made?
do. So what again, no, I can't speak for either candidate and what they would
No,
actually
no.
do if elected. But what I think needs to happen is instead of this piecemeal approach, we need to put a lot on the table. And what I would recommend is instead of aid, which is then hard to pass because it's taxpayer money and the Congress has to vote on it, I would give Ukraine a massive loan, a lend-lease package, maybe as much as $500 billion, $500 billion, which can be drawn upon to buy U.S. defense items. Something like that would be big enough and would get Putin's attention and say, look, you're never
Sure.
going to outspend this. You're never going
Mm.
to outdo this.
And it
The other
also,
thing that I would
mm,
do, and I do
sorry.
think that Trump would do this I think is actually part of what Trump would do.
Mm.
He would increase US oil and gas production and exports as quickly as he possibly can. And that serves many purposes. Most important for Trump is reducing US energy prices. But in addition to that, it would reduce global energy prices, which would starve Putin of some funds for his war.
Mm.
It would also starve Iran of funds for its proxy wars against Israel. And so for all of those reasons, I think that part is actually likely.
Well, I like that plan. It sounds like a plan, at least. Well, lend lease is a fine thing to do, and it's also good for America, good for economy, isn't
It
it?
is, and it is actually what we did to help Britain in World War II
Hmm.
before we were attacked and
Well, here we
joined the
go.
war ourselves.
Right, right. Okay, let me not smoothly, but at least try to slide to another question. North Korea. I mean, North Korean troops are fighting and dying in Ukraine. This is a fact for me, but this is not yet a fact for Pentagon. Well, when it will become a fact for Pentagon, I believe at some point it will, do you believe that the restrictions will be lifted from the long-range weapons?
Well, they're two different questions. So let's talk for a minute about North Korea. Obviously, Russia has brought in North Korean troops. We don't know the exact number yet. I've seen estimates of 10 to 12,000. That is the number of troops that Russia loses in about 2 weeks of fighting. So it is not a big number. Moreover, these are people who are probably very confused as to where they are and what they're doing. And I think that they are not going to be a very effective addition to Russia's war effort. And at the same time, they are an escalation because they're internationalizing this conflict in a way that had not yet been done. So all those things are notable. I don't think it's going to make a big difference in Russia's conduct of the war. Now, I don't understand why we're not hearing more from the Biden administration and from European capitals about this. It is an unacceptable escalation of the war. There is no reason to bring in more countries to widen this in any way. It should be something that we are talking about and rejecting. And then finally, your question about approval for long-range weapons. This is something that should have been done a long time ago, or in fact, there should never have been a restriction to begin with. The issue should be Ukraine restricting itself to striking military targets, which it does, as opposed to saying don't strike, any distance into Russian territory. I mean, it really makes no sense. Now we are a week away from the US presidential election, and we've been in this election period for some time.
Right.
I don't believe the Biden administration wants to make any big announcements about Ukraine before the US presidential election. I am optimistic, however, that after the election passes, there will be some changes, and that one of them will be probably on an operational and case-by-case basis. They'll start approving the use of weapons long range.
Right. Well, maybe I know, just an idea, just a thought crossed my mind. Maybe Ukraine should ask South Korea for some army.
I think South Korea may be itching to volunteer.
Yeah, that might be true.
I wouldn't actually ask for troops, but what I would do, and I think there may be some effort in this, people who can help with intelligence, with communications, with language, and a little bit even of understanding of tactics and command and control of North Korean forces, which would be very beneficial to Ukraine in figuring out how to deal with them.
The last question for tonight, the last question is, next presidential, would you run for president, Mr. Volker, if you can?
Would I run for president?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Why? Because I
Being
like your
president-
answers so much, sir. I like your library in your house. I like the way you look. I like what you say. I believe the Ukrainians will like it too. And at least my audience, tens of thousands of people, that's to be true.
Well, maybe I should run for president in Ukraine then, because
Oh my God, don't say this.
the
Don't
US
say
it's
it.
domestic politics that drive who gets elected president in the United States, and I've never done anything in domestic politics.
I know. Maybe Ukraine should become a 52nd. Well, I'm sorry. No. All right. No, I haven't said that. And you haven't said anything about being president of Ukraine. And this is where we put a full stop to it. And I thank you so very much. It was Kurt Volker at our studio at UATV English, a great expert in many things and in politics, and who wears many hats, I believe. Thank you so very much, sir.
Thank you.